Retirement isn't about hitting $1 million.
It's about hitting your number.
And most people have no idea what their number actually is.
A lot of retirement advice focuses on round numbers.
But $1 million for one person could be plenty.
And for another one, not even close. Here in a minute, we'll be breaking down how to think about retirement the right way, based on lifestyle, real expenses, and a realistic plan, not myth.
So today we're talking about how to solve for your particular number, what goes into it, and why guessing can cause some problems later on. So let me ask the question, do I need $1 million to retire?
I mean, everyone's retirement looks different. Some people are just as happy sitting on the back porch, drinking their iced tea, watching the birds go by. Other people want to travel the world, see things. They might have ambitions for a certain car. And really, neither is wrong. I mean, we've got clients retired that have $200,000 in an IRA, and then other clients that have $9 million with us. And I've seen the gambit of there's some people with that 200,000 that'll never touch it. It's going to the next generation. And then I've got some that've got 3-4 million with us. It's everything I can to keep them from spending too much money. So really it's more of a question of lifestyle.
So what's actually needed is how much money is going to support your lifestyle, not someone else's.
Yeah, that's why using a blanket number is really misleading.
So let's talk about figuring out how much my lifestyle is going to cost. How do we go about solving this problem?
The starting point is easy. What will your monthly expenses look like in retirement? Some costs are just never going to go away. Food, utilities, gas, insurance. Those things not only are going to stick around, but they're probably going to go up in price too. Mm-hmm. And that can shift over time. But for most people, it's going to stay pretty consistent, those items, right?
Mm-hmm. And then, by the way, inflation, it really matters too. You know, what $3,000 can buy today is probably not what $3,000 is going to be able to buy in the future.
Right. The past few years of hyperinflation has rudely reminded us all of that. Mm-hmm. Right? Inflation has to be considered. And then other goals have to be accounted for as well.
Yep. This is where people can tend to be a little vague.
Yeah. So saying something like, I want to travel, probably not going to get the job done. You need specifics. Where are you going? How often? How much is it going to cost?
Yeah. Something like this. My wife and I want to visit Europe once a year until we're 80, starting at 70, and we think it's going to cost $10,000 each trip. The more specific you are, the more accurate that the math actually becomes.
Plus, you need to be honest about your goals. We have some folks that get so sick of working. They're so ate up with, I don't want to go into the refinery anymore. And because of that feeling, that disgust of going to work or whatever, they're willing in the moment to forego some type of goal they would normally do. Mm-hmm. So use your retirement example or your travel example. Well, if they normally would travel and they say, I'll give up traveling so that I can retire. Now, a few years might go by or so, maybe if that long. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we can go to Europe. Oh, maybe we did it once, maybe we can do it again. And then that's how overspending starts to creep in. You weren't honest on the front end, didn't plan for it, and now you're spending too much.
Mm-hmm. So let's shift a little bit and let's talk about some costs or expenses that people often miss when they're doing this calculation.
Yeah, there's a few that are a little harder to predict. Long-term care is one of the biggies. A lot of people's head, whenever they think of long-term care, automatically goes to a nursing home, which are very expensive in their own right. But even at-home care, which there's way more options for at-home care now, even that can cost upwards of about $70,000 a year.
Not to mention that cars are inevitably going to wear out. Roofs are going to have to be replaced. And air conditioners, when we live in Southeast Texas, air conditioners are going to break.
And that's not fun.
No.
Not in the 100-degree weather in August. So,
No, it's something you're going to have to do something about.
right.
So you need to plan.
Yeah, some of those risks can be dealt with through insurance, some of them through saving, and a lot of them probably a combination of both. So if you save a little, have some insurance, you've got a way to deal with that stuff and hedge against them happening or not happening. The idea is acknowledging that it exists and that you have a prepared plan to deal with it.
That's right. Having insurance and having savings, what is that? That's a plan. That's why having an emergency fund, it's a non-negotiable. One of the things that we see consistently is that people underestimate the importance of having an adequate emergency fund.
Yeah, in my opinion, is for a retiree, it's a little different if you're still working. For a retiree, 9 to 12 months of expenses, liquid assets in the bank. I don't care what it's earning. That's not the purpose. It's for emergencies. I always say this, but a hurricane doesn't care if the stock market's down. And more importantly, what I find is life typically happens in 2s and 3s. So not only does the hurricane come through and knock your roof off, but then you got to replace that refrigerator. Or you just get all that stuff fixed and the TV goes out. It's usually not just one thing that happens in a short amount of time, like less than a year. It's usually in 2s and 3s.
But an emergency fund, it's not just for emergencies. It's also for opportunities.
Yep. I mean, so what if you're retired and you've got your monthly income coming in and all of a sudden, unexpectedly, someone invites you on a trip with them, like an exotic hunt? Well, you don't want to just say no, nor do you want to be pulling the money out at the wrong time either. So if you have that lump sum in the bank, you can tackle that, look at the markets, make sure your portfolio's up before you replenish it. If it's down, you can wait, forego for a little bit, and then when the markets come back, take that money and repay back your emergency fund because you had it there to begin with. So they're for opportunities that can come up in retirement as well, yeah.
So shifting gears here a little bit, let's talk about the math on how much am I going to need in retirement. Is there some shortcut math to do right now that we can figure out?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't have a written budget or a financial plan. That's probably the best way. But there are some things that you can look at to get you in the zone where you need to be. The first thing you can do is take an average of about 3 to 4 months of spending, start tracking that for about 3 or 4 months. And then once you get that average, multiply that by 12. That'll give you an annual amount of your monthly expenses that you have. The second thing you're probably going to want to do is add back into that number what you're going to plan on spending on vacations every year or some other goal that you have on a yearly basis.
And step 3 is we're going to need to subtract income sources like Social Security, annuities, and pensions.
Right. And that's going to leave you with a gap. That's the gap you have to fill with some other source like a retirement portfolio.
And in addressing that gap, the money that we need to live on outside of annuities, pensions, or Social Security income, the gap right there, that's where we come to our withdrawal rate on our retirement account. This is where we hear about the 4% rule, and most often where that 4% rule is misunderstood because it doesn't work the same for everyone.
Right. So a younger retiree probably needs to be a little bit more conservative with that percentage than someone who's a little older. And we get into this in another video. I may link that one in the description. But at the end of the day, because of the amount of market cycles and things they're going to go through in life, probably needs to be a little more conservative because they got a lot more runway in retirement potentially. So for somebody that's retiring, say around 50, might want to be closer to 3%, 2.5%, 3%. Someone that's 65, that's where that 4%. And if you're older than that, substantially older than that, maybe even a higher percentage would be appropriate. Plus the amount that you withdraw, the bigger amounts that you pull out, the more sensitive your plan is to that withdrawal during market downturns. The higher the withdrawal rate, so the higher that percentage, you've got to be two different things. You have to be more willing and or able to back off of your expenses to lower that percentage off of the corpus in times of high market volatility or downturns like bear markets. So willing and able are two different things. You can be willing and you not able to back off because you got a lot of debt. You can be able and just not want to change your lifestyle. So you have to be both. But if you're willing and able, then yeah, if you're taking a higher withdrawal percentage, like say at age 50, and you're taking 4 or 5% out of the corpus, okay, well, when the market drops, not if, but when the market drops, you have to be willing and able to back off the amount that you're pulling out so that you can keep that 4 or 5% consistent with the amount that's in the portfolio. Else you run the risk of running out of money down the road.
Yeah, and the reality is most people don't like making lifestyle changes.
Right. We don't like change. As human beings, we don't like change. We get into our comfort zones, and it's not always possible. So the more change you create for yourself by pulling out too much, there's more stress, more anxiety, harder to make decisions, so on and so forth. So then the other thing to consider is adding back into what we were talking about earlier, the need. You have to add into that the need of the unknowns. So when you think about long-term care costs, the appropriate emergency fund that you're going to need, you got to put that back into the number as well. So say your number was $600,000. Well, now it might be like $900,000 because you add in these other costs that aren't inexpensive. And that number can potentially be a lot higher because we're talking about today's dollars when we're figuring all this, and we got to put inflation into that number as well. It's probably going to be bigger down the road than it is today because your cost of living is going to go up between now and then, right? Healthcare is a particular problem because healthcare inflation is usually quite a bit higher than normal everyday items or inflation rates.
So here's what we should do. First, don't let myths drive your retirement goals.
Second, understand inflation and the time value of money.
And third, consider working with someone who can run the math properly.
Retirement isn't about hitting an arbitrary number. It's about funding the life that you actually want.
That number is personal, and guessing, it's costly.
If you want help running the numbers and understanding what your retirement could realistically require, talk with a professional you trust.